Hello, everyone. Welcome to those people who are joining me live. Hi. I can't see who you are, but thank you for joining me live, and for everyone who will be joining me later, thank you for watching the video as well. And if it's the first time that we're meeting, small introduction. My name is Isabel Martins from healthandnaturallife.com, and I work with all things concerning energy, consciousness, our energy body, our energy world, pretty much energy clearing, animal communication, anything that bridges the view that we have at this point of the world as being a mechanical, nuts and bolts type of mechanism, to the paradigm where everything is energy, everything is consciousness, everything is frequency, and we interact from those perspectives and from that understanding, because it creates a whole different way of being and living and creating and interacting in the world. And on this video, I wanted to share some insights, some understanding, to the best of my current understanding, of course, about self-love. And I'm going to start by sharing a little bit on why we have such a self-love deficit or crisis in our Western culture, and afterwards what we actually can do about it, based on the exposition that I'll do first. Because we have a lot of people telling us, okay, we need to love ourselves, we need to love ourselves. And for most of us, it's probably a question of, yeah, I understand that, how? And there's also a sort of a guilt and maybe even shame that we don't love ourselves. We should love ourselves. What the hell is wrong with us? There's nothing wrong with us. It's actually just a mode of functioning that we were taught. So let's start there. When we are babies, when we are born, there's no concept of self-love or lack of self-love. We're just being. We're just a being, and we don't even experience at that point in time a sense of self. So, and this is one of the things that starts changing over time, and that starts creating the differentiation between just being and being in self-love, to a degree that it's not even a thing. It's just our natural way of life, versus start judging and criticizing. This is going to be pretty much a tale of two brains, if you want a summary of this. When we are babies, we are still in that full everything is part of us mode. So we still haven't developed our perception to the degree where we experience separation. As we start growing up and growing older, we start by noticing that there's a body here, and there's edges to that body, and there are things and bodies and objects over there. So we start by creating a sense of separation. But it isn't a separation that we feel as painful yet. It's just a separation that concerns with practicalities of boundaries. So for instance, for a very small child, if they're playing with a toy and you just rip that toy out of their hands, they will cry as if you've ripped a part of them away, because that object is still part of them. They understand that physical, hence ear, but there's still a connectedness with everything. And at that point in time, we still have no concept of self, as in self-identity, and we still have no concept of real separation or painful separation, let's call it that. As we continue to grow older, and this probably starts happening 4, 5, although at this point in time I'm seeing it starting even younger. Kids start to shift from this previous mode of perception, which is still very much a right brain mode of dominant perception. So one that sees connectedness, one that sees whole pictures, a gestalt of things, versus individuality versus details, that type of, or even not having a mental construct of things. And we start learning, because of our current society, start learning to analyze things, to create a mental picture of things. So for instance, a flower stops being the object, the entity. Flower, it starts becoming a label. It's a flower. So we start relating to the world in terms of that mental filter. We start creating mental filters for everything, including ourselves. So we start developing what we now call the ego. So a sense of identity, of separate self. And this is very natural. It's very normal. It's just that because of, again, our current society, this sense of self and sense of ego starts learning to judge, to make comparisons. We start moving a lot to the left brain mode of perception, which is very focused on details, very focused on, instead of the big picture, the small, intricate little things about something, and starts segregating and separating in order to notice the little details of things. And because it starts becoming such an habitual mode of perception, we do it to ourselves as well. So we extricate ourselves from the whole of life and start becoming a separate, isolated thing ourselves. And of course, because we're taught then in our society that there's a right way of a thing to be and a wrong way, there's one that's better than the other, then we start judging. So there's a right, there's a wrong. Where do I stand in the middle of this? And that's where we get tripped up, and that's where our concept of ourselves starts going down the drain, and self-love disappears, because we are so much in the left brain predominant mode of perception. We are focused very much on, even when we try to work on self-love, we're focused very much on approval, and approval is not acceptance or love. So let me just give you a little definition, at least, because my words and the meaning that they have for me might not have the same meaning for you. So for me, approval, and that's something that the left brain can do, because it's comparing A to B and seeing if A measures up to the standards of B, and it's either approved or not approved of. Approval is that, it's a comparison, it's a judgment. So it's a rational process that we make. That's not love. That's a judgment still. Acceptance, in the way that I feel it, is just, it's almost like being fully present with what is, and everything is fully accepted. Whether the standards or comparisons measure up or not, we're not even paying attention to that, because it's full on acceptance. And full on acceptance and full on resonance, for me, are much closer to love. Our mind, or at least our left brain mode of perception, isn't made, it's just not its mode of functioning for love. And because it's made for approval, and because we are so biased towards working in the left brain mode of perception in our society, that's why we have so much difficulty with self-love, because no matter how much we try, we can only get to approval from that mode of perception. So the solution, this is how we got here. It's nothing to do with anything wrong with us. It's just a mode of perception that we got trained into, and it has its benefits and it has its downfalls. And the separation from life, extricating ourselves and feeling that we're separate things, and analyzing things to the detail, judging, that's one of the downfalls of being in the predominant left brain mode of perception. Solutions. Let's start bringing up more our right brain mode of awareness. So our right brain, in a way, we can access it by being as well present, because the right brain is the mode of self-awareness, of presence, of being in time, but in the now, and seeing the connection, the interconnectedness of everything, of all things. And instead of focusing on details or parts of things, just feeling part of the whole, but without the judgment and separation. It's just an entirety that we are an integral and perfect part of. So how do we get to that point? If we are in our body, We're always in the present moment. And when we are in our body, we aren't judging, precisely because we are in the present moment. If you want to, you can check also the video that I did last week, and it was on ways to start being embodied, feeling yourself inside, from within your body, instead of having, again, a left brain concept of the body and trying to relate to the body from that mental concept. Right brain, we are fully present, fully aware. And in that state, there's no thinking really about self-love, because there's no concept or judgment that will indicate anything to the contrary. We just fully accept ourselves, our experience, life, beauty, love, existence. So when we are fully present in our body, very naturally we are in that state of self-love, because anything that, not anything, but pretty much what takes us out of that state of self-love is comparison, judgment, a mental construct of the world that we then see ourselves through. That's, as much as possible, being in our bodies gets us back into that place of self-love. Another way to get more practiced into functioning more and more from a more predominant right brain mode of perception is, I don't know how to explain it, because it is a felt experience. But for instance, when we are walking, we're usually aware of, okay, I'm walking here, I have this step here, I have that thing, that place, that room as a destination. Let's say inside our houses, I'm sitting here, I want to go to the kitchen next. I'm present, I'm aware that I'm here, but if I'm in my left brain mode, I'm going to take steps towards the kitchen, ignoring everything but the outcome, kitchen. For me to be in a right brain mode, and it's quite a fascinating experience, and it can be disorienting a little bit if we're really in left brain. I can start, and I would suggest you try and play with this, start broadening your scope of vision and start seeing the continuity of your surroundings as you take each step. So you take a step towards the kitchen and you start seeing, yes, the floor has continuity, the walls have continuity, everything has a flow, a continuity, instead of being you here, kitchen there, goal oriented. You're seeing the flow in between every step that you take. So maybe a broadening of your scope of vision, because visual input is the one that uses our brain the most. But as well, if you're auditory, paying attention to sounds and to the continuity of sounds, and a specific sound that is immersed in a whole range of other sounds, feeling that interconnectedness of things, that continuity, that flow of everything in our experience starts putting us more and more in our right brain of perception. And this is a beautiful mindfulness and presence practice as well. And again, it gets us from the rational, linear, conceptual, mental image of the world into a felt, embodied, connected, whole vision of the world, where we are present, we are in our bodies, and we start dissolving those mental constructs, that criticism, and start feeling more that we do belong. We are part of the world. We're not separate. And I think that separation, this fear of separation, is one of the greatest things that lead us to this lack of self-love, or the fear of being unlovable, because we feel that we're not connected, we're not part of. So the more that we shift to right brain perception, and if you have other suggestions, please let me know. I'm always willing to learn more about this, because again, left brain is so predominant in me and in most people in our society, that the more that we can find just creative ways to get to our right brain mode of perception. Music is another one. Music, especially music that's irregular, that we can't predict what's coming next, puts us in our right brain, because the left brain doesn't really appreciate newness. It likes the familiar. So anything that's new, anything that you want to experiment with, even doing things with regular things in a different way, or using perhaps your left hand where you would use your right hand, all of that, because it is new, novelty, the left brain just goes, not my jam, and lets the right brain just take the lead there. And we start becoming more present, more embodied, more in that knowing of our innate and natural state of self-love. And that's a training that comes from the inside out, instead of us trying to beat ourselves, maybe with affirmations or something else that we try to say. And these are useful, and they're more useful if they're novelty. If we become habituated to them, left brain takes over, and again, it can get us to approval, but not to acceptance and love. So anything that takes you to the right brain, anything that brings you into the body, anything that brings you into the present moment is helping you a lot. And by leaps and bounds, come to a place of greater self-love, of belonging, of not feeling separate, of feeling safe, and all the good things that come from there. And that's what I wanted to share today. I hope this gave you perhaps a broader perspective, or maybe a different perspective on self-love, and that sparks some new ideas in you on how you can actually become more embodied, become more present, become more predominant in the mode of functioning from the right brain, of seeing wholeness, of seeing the interconnectedness of everything, of seeing the sacredness of everything, and start bringing that that concept into yourself as well. I hope this was helpful. Like, share, comment. If you have any questions, please do ask them, and I'll see you on the next video.